My name is Tarek Abu Jabara, and this is my story. Today on Discovering Palestinian Intellect, the special edition of chatting with Slava the Jordanian on the Mindset Mastery Moments. Hello and welcome back. I am your host, STJ, and allow me to introduce our guest today, Tarek Abu Jabara. A little bit of summary of his achievements. Tarek is an electrical engineer by education and an activist community organizer by passion. He has over 20 years of professional experience working for various tech companies specializing in robotics and automation. Tarek moved to the U.S. in 2002, where he got his degree from the University of Michigan, Dearborn, and started his career in Michigan as a control engineer in automotive industry, where he helped design and build automotive assembly lines for companies like Ford, GM, Chrysler, and Mercedes. Tarek then moved to Boston in 2006 and worked for Motorola, Amazon, Google, Cruise, and most recently for Symbotic as a technical program manager. So aside from robotics, Tarek's passion lies in community organizing and activism. Tarek served in various local and national roles for the NAAP, which is the Network of Arab American Professionals, including national president. Currently, Tarek serves as the president of the Boston chapter of the PCRF, which is Palestine Children's Relief Fund, a nonprofit focused on medical and humanitarian relief for the children of Palestine. Welcome, Tarek, and thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time and contributing and collaborating to our series.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here, and thanks for talking to me. Looking forward to it.
Of course. So let's start. Since the Mindset Mastery Moment platform, we're using it to tell our story and share with us what got you to come to the United States in 2002.
Sure. I was born and raised in Amman, Jordan. Originally Palestinian. My dad is from Palestine, from Jaffa. My mom's actually Jordanian from northern Jordan, from Irbid. Grew up in Amman. And what really got me to come to the U.S. was kind of my family history or my dad's history. My dad got his PhD in the U.S. from the University of Wisconsin and went back to Amman and became a college professor. In 1986, mid-86, my dad took his sabbatical year from the University of Jordan and decided to be a visiting professor at the California State University in Long Beach. So he pretty much brought the entire family with him, and we all spent a year living in Los Angeles, in Anaheim, to be specific. So I basically spent like second grade in the U.S. And funny enough, it's like I came to the U.S. barely speaking any English. I can understand the language, but I could barely speak it, and went back to Jordan and struggled to relearn Arabic because I'd forgotten about it and just like learned English. But since like we went back in mid-87 and I just loved that year, kept kind of that connection with the U.S., kept keeping kind of track of it and all that. And as I grew up and got close to high school and finishing high school and going to university, I started kind of thinking I would love to study in the U.S. instead of studying in Jordan. At the time, it didn't work out. I ended up doing my my bachelor's degree, my undergrad in Jordan. But I made a deal with my dad. He said, okay, get good enough grades, get an acceptance for a master's, and you will go, I'll make sure that you study in the U.S. So that was kind of our deal, which I kept my end of it and, got good enough grades, got accepted in a few universities in the U.S. and, came to the U.S. to study. For me, it was more than just like the education. There was the education as an engineer, very few places in the world will give you a better education than the U.S. But part of it is also building my life. Like it's a life experience that I wanted to have, to kind of live on my own, live in a different country, get a higher education. And then when that was coming to an end, I kind of had a decision to make: keep studying, go back to Jordan, or look for a job. And I decided, you know what, I like this. I'm gonna stick around and look for a job and try it out. And, 20 plus years later, I'm here. Boston has become home and, built a life with my wife and kids and everything. So this kind of become home for me. So that's kind of in a nutshell, a quick summary of my life is it's just was a fascination with the culture, fascination with building a life for myself outside of my comfort zone, and part of it is also following my dad's footsteps of studying in the U.S.
Yeah, that's amazing journey. Real quick one, but it's not quick.
Yeah.
So just to clarify for our listeners and our viewers, so the first time you landed in the US, you were 2 years old?
I was 6+ years old. So
you were in second grade.
Yes. So I studied second grade in the US. I was about 6.5, almost 7 years old. Yeah.
And how many years did you spend in the US before going back to Jordan?
We spent a year. So from about mid 86 to mid 87.
Was it because your dad was working here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as a college professor, every 6 or 8 years, college professors in Jordan get to take a sabbatical year and go do research somewhere else. So my dad, when it was his time to do it, he decided that he wanted to do his research in the U.S. So he became a visiting professor at California State University, and the whole family tagged along.
Yeah. What was his PhD in again?
Accounting. So he got his PhD in accounting from University of Wisconsin. That was his own interesting route, which we can always talk about, of course.
So he's a numbers guy, right?
He's a numbers guy. He's a taxes guy. So it's numbers and taxes with him all the time.
Do you think your passion for numbers came from there as an engineer? Because my brother is a double E too.
Yeah. I don't know. I think so. My brother followed in my dad's footsteps and went into accounting. I think my passion came from science in general. Just a fascination of how science explains all these things in the world that we find fascinating, and all things that as a little kid I couldn't understand, and then science started peeling the onion for me and explaining them. So that's where it came. I think that's kind of where my journey as an engineer started, is like 4th grade science and math kind of. And I had a really good teacher that really kind of, I don't want to say pushed me, but she really did an amazing job explaining science concepts at the time that just got me into it big time. And that led to my journey. And funny enough, I'm still in touch with her. Her son is now my best friend, but that kind of like set me on the path.
That's always fascinating. It's almost everybody that I spoke with and everybody that came on as guests, it's always a teacher somehow. Same thing with my husband. He has a PhD in physical chemistry, and what got him into chemistry, his high school teacher. He was an amazing teacher. It's really how you deliver the information to this child. And if that child identify with it and becomes a passion, you just ignite that passion inside us. So did your mom seek a higher education in Jordan?
So my mom has a bachelor's in from business school. I think like business administration, and she worked in banking for a year or two before kind of having us kids and dedicating her time to the family. And funny enough, while my mom was studying and my dad was teaching at the University of Jordan in the business school, that's how they met. So my dad was a professor of accounting. My mom was studying at the university at the time, and they met and fell in love and got married as soon as she graduated. Yeah.
The rest is history. That's awesome. So one of the things we have in common is our parent setup. My mom is from Jordan, from Asalt, and my dad, Nabulsi, originally from Nablus. So, I always share the story how the outlook on life really different coming from a native Jordanian and a Palestinian. But I'm wondering if that resonates with you too. My mom was very much the traditional tribal connection. My dad, he was more the egalitarian figure in the parenting part. So, do you find that is true with the way your parents kind of created your belief system, your value system. I mean, don't get me wrong, the values are the same. We're all Arabs, but my dad was a lot more for, he was such a feminist. Girls can do whatever they want, is equal to the boys. My mom was the same, but she had her moments, that, you're a girl, you can't do that. My dad was 100% like libertarian. And I think because of the coming from a region like Palestine that has been exposed to so many different civilizations, so many different, unfortunately, occupation, but they grabbed a lot of the best of all the world and created their, like I said, egalitarian mentality or egalitarian mindset. Because we talk a lot about this on this platform is, mastering an unlimited mindset by eliminating limited beliefs. And that was my dad to the T. My mom, 80% of the time, yes, but 20%, she had her fears. She did have her limiting fears that what if. So it didn't stop us from, seeking higher education or venturing or displacing ourselves from, Saudi, because I was born and raised in Saudi. Do you find that, or your household was pretty much liberal and?
I think maybe not to the same degree. So my dad, and I'll dive into like my parents' backgrounds a little. So my dad, he was born in 1940, so he was 8 years old when the Nakba happened and the displacement and all that. So similar to a lot of Palestinians, after they lost everything, realizing education is the only thing nobody can take from us, and kind of pursuing that path. That's not to say like his family wasn't pursuing that path before, but he kind of reinforced it even more. My mom's side of the family has a very interesting history. But my mom specifically, her dad, my grandfather, worked for the local phosphate mining company. So they pretty much lived all across the country, all across Jordan, because whenever he was needed in a specific location, they would just relocate, and he would spend years and years there. And when she got to go to college, they were living in the southern part of Jordan, Al-Aqaba, which is like on the Red Sea, the Red Sea port. But she ended up going to school in the University of Jordan in Amman, going to the dorm and all that. So she was by herself, which in the late 60s, early 70s, obviously culturally different country, different apprehensions. But her dad, very open minded about education, all that. So he pushed for that, pursued that, and all that. So I think coming from those two sides of the family, we never had limitation. There was never like, you can't pursue one thing or another, or girls can't do anything, one thing or another. Quite the opposite. My dad, a lot of his experiences, including his experience when we were in Los Angeles, reinforced in him the value of us kids getting our education, and insisting that if we want it, the education doesn't stop at a bachelor's degree. If we want it, he will make it happen one way or the other. He will make sure that we get our graduate degree. And 3 out of us, 4 siblings, we have graduate degrees, because 3 of us wanted to pursue it. So he insisted on that. My mom was very supportive, apprehensive. Her kids are leaving the nest and going to these foreign countries, and living away from her. Till this day, I'm 45 years old. I have 2 kids, and till this day, she treats me like her little boy because she's a mother. So it wasn't a matter of no. It was a matter of just like typical mother instinct. Typical. I'm worried for my kids, and I want them to be close to me, but obviously understanding and supporting all of us. So, both my families, like both my mom's family and my dad's family, valued education a lot, valued women independence a lot. They were, you could say, on the liberal side of things a little bit. So that kind of just naturally paved the way for us to do what we wanted to do, to pursue our life in the way we saw best.
The amazing thing about anybody that so far that I interviewed coming from that part of the world had exactly the same drive and the same support for higher education. And it's absolutely beautiful thing to hear because, when you migrate or immigrate, you're in your bubble. You're focused on trying to achieve your goal, trying to execute the plan that you sacrificed everybody you know and everybody you love and everybody you know in order to come to elevate your intellect by seeking a higher education for a better life. Part of it is the pride in us. We are so proud to make our family proud. And part of us is the constant yearning for knowledge. We want to know more and we want to do more. So I am so glad we're talking about this because I really wanted one of the goals of the series. I wanted the world to know and I want the world to learn what we are all about. Unfortunately, we are constantly living in the echo chamber of stereotype and, due to whatever politics or somebody's narrative, and we get stuck in that. So just like any nation, just like any race, just like any heritage, we do have the good and not so good. But I really want to share with our audience and our listeners that we are more than that, and that's why my tagline on my Instagram posts and stories about Palestinian intellect, that we are more than tent living refugees. We are Palestinian intellect. Yeah, circumstances happen, and those are really unfortunate that pushed us either displace ourselves by default or by design. But we did not stop there. That was not enough for us. We don't want the world to keep saying, poor you, it's unfortunate what happened to you. I want the world to see that we went above and beyond that and achieved, first, in so many circumstances or instances, more than the average, even American. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. So all I want to do is to lay out the facts, shed a light on our stories, and have our audience judge for themselves if, are we worth the acknowledgement, the recognition, because we work as hard, sometimes harder than some of the citizens, first-class citizens, I call them Americans, that they're very privileged or they have it easy. So there is a sacrifice, and that sacrifice is worthwhile, but we definitely make a lot out of it when we don't basically quit. Quitting is not an option. Failure is not an option. Not doing anything is not an option. And I think that creates, believe it or not, the irony creates the unlimited mindset that we have that drives us to continue doing better and continue doing good. So, and you put it beautifully. My mom was exactly the same. She was not against education. My mom went to American University in Beirut, so she was westernized from college on. But it's just the motherly instinct. Why can't everybody stay together? Why can't you guys just stay in one spot so I can visit you? Like, I can make the rounds on 1 to 5 in one day kind of thing. So it was more leaving the nest, stepping out of her comfort zone. But I do believe that, assault is very Bedouin tribal tradition, customs, and that it was hard for her just to let go of that because that was her belief system. Her belief system was solidified as an adult that family stays together. It's all about family. Yeah. And probably you heard it all your life, family, family, family. So, but it's not like she said no to higher education. By all means, she said, do more. It's not enough. Keep going until you can't even go anymore. So, thank you for that.
They're pulled in, their mothers especially, they are being pulled by two different forces, opposing each other. Like the motherly instinct of be around me, stay around me. So whenever all my siblings get together in the summer and visit my parents, my mom's the happiest because we're all there. And whenever we start, one of us starts going back, each one at their own time, she starts that whole, why can't you all be around me? Like, why can't this be the same? But at the same time, it's that I want the best for my kids, and if this is the best for my kids, I will support it. So, it is definitely different. My mom is from Irbid, so it's probably a little bit different than Salt. Obviously, Irbid is like, my mom comes from a family called the Sharia, which is a very old family in Jordan. So there is that. They're not, I don't want to say Bedouin, they're more like, they were farmers, and then the majority of her uncles went into military and public service. So that, I think, is what colors their belief system, their kind of that's their prism on life, is they come from that old farmer mentality, but at the end of the day, they like, none of her uncles or any of her uncles pursued that. They eventually all pursued public life, or some of them even their own businesses. So it kind of colors that, I want to say, a little bit of that liberalism, and go pursue your own thing. You don't have to do what the family business is.
Yeah. I agree with you. Salt is it's a unique beast.
My best friend is from there. So, like my best friend that I mentioned, he's from there, and he's a wonderful man, but he's a unique individual, as you said. So, yeah.
They're very special people. Let's put it that way. Wonderful, very special people.
Wonderful,
yes,
special
they
people.
Are. So going back to your dad, unfortunately, he was born 1940, right? Mm-hmm. He got displaced from, was it Jaffa?
Jaffa, yes.
Jaffa. So how old was he when he came to Jordan? He was 8, you mentioned?
Actually, he was 11. So, and it's not like he lost 3 years. No. So the way it worked out for my family is 1948. My grandfather and grandmother basically piled up all the children in the car and went to visit relatives of theirs in Gaza. And this was pre-May 15th, the Nakba and the occupation. I think it was like 3 days before that. They went to visit my dad's uncle on his dad's side, so Ammi. And then Nakba happens, and now they're stuck in Gaza, and they cannot leave, and now they have to figure out life there and all that. So they had the misfortune of not only losing everything, but they didn't even have anything. Like some people, when they fled, they took their house keys, or they took their documents, or some money. Like, no, none of that. So my grandmother never had like the symbolic house key that a lot of Palestinians to this day hold on to. All they had is the stories and obviously the clothes on their back. They spent 3 years in Gaza, and then my dad's uncle on his mom's side, so Khal Abui, he was I think at the time either the minister of education, or had a high enough position in the Ministry of Education that he was able to apply for my dad and his family to come to Jordan and become Jordanian citizens. So around 1951 or 52, they went to Amman and kind of built a life for themselves there. So he was 8 when the Nakba happened, and they were in Gaza, but then spent about 3 or 4 years living in Gaza before they went to Amman and built a life for themselves there.
So they went from Jaffa to Gaza. Unfortunately, they were visiting, so they didn't think that they're going to be locked out of their homes. And then from Gaza, they came to settle in Amman. Okay. So it is displacement, by default. They did not choose it. So he's a child of diaspora, basically, and it's so sad. It's amazing how these stories are so parallel with, so far, everybody that I spoke with. So I guess according to the article that was published by the Columbia Press blog in August 23rd, 2023, that Palestinians now are known as the world's most educated refugees. And the question I always ask all my guests is, do you think if the Nakba never happened, you think the Palestinians will have the same drive for higher education, or it would have not mattered regardless?
Obviously, it's tough to definitively say. I believe that if the Nakba didn't happen, the level of education might not be the same, to be honest. That's not to say that the Nakba is the only reason why we as Palestinians are highly educated. There's a wonderful book by the historian Ilan Pape that talks about I think it's called The Modern History of Palestine, if I'm not mistaken. And in it, he talks about the last about 150 years of the history of Palestine. So going back to the late stages of the Ottoman Empire and all that. And in there, he says like the Palestinian society was highly educated relative to its counterparts in the region, relative to kind of European or quote unquote the Western world. We had, pre-1948, in the 1920s, we had airports, we had railroad tracks, we had a lot of schools all the way up to high school. So the drive for education was there, and the drive for modernization has been there in the Palestinians ever, like, from the get-go. I think the Nakba accelerated that and also made that more prevalent. So like I take my dad's story as an example. So my dad grew up born in Jaffa. Unfortunately, didn't grow up there, but his dad before him and his dad, like hundreds of years before that, many generations of our family are from Jaffa, and they are farmers. So my grandfather was an orange farmer at the end of the day, just like the majority of people in Jaffa, I guess. He had many pieces of land. You can call him a gentleman farmer, I guess, because he had so many pieces of land. But at the same time, insisted that his kids get an education, especially my dad. My dad was his eldest. So when they found themselves stuck in Gaza, my grandfather insisted that my dad continue his education and found a private school for him to study in Gaza and enrolled him there. And my dad says the day that his dad took him out of private school, put him in public school, is the day he knew that money is running out and they need to figure something out. But for those two plus years, my grandfather insisted his kids' education does not get disrupted. So it's been there from the beginning. Now, had the Nakba not happened, would have my dad continued his higher education, or would he have gone into the family business after finishing high school? I don't know. But the answer is definitely there, that because the Nakba happened, my dad continued his higher education, got his PhD, pursued that. So I think the drive for education is there. I think the percentage of highly educated Palestinians and how fast we went for it is what the Nakba contributed to. That's kind of my, I don't want to say, statistical guess. This is my hunch, is that had the Nakba not happened, we would still be highly educated people, but not necessarily with the same number of PhDs, for example, or not necessarily with the same number of, college graduates. So I think the Nakba played a huge part of it. It's in our DNA prior to the Nakba, and I think the other part that plays a role in it is kind of competitiveness. Just like a lot of Arab societies, we are a very competitive society amongst ourselves. Like, there's always hey, my brother got a PhD, he's not better than me, I'm going to go get a PhD. Or my cousin, or the parents, needling, their kids, like, oh, your cousin is a doctor, why don't you go to medical school? So I think that definitely is present in our culture and definitely plays a role in pushing us to be also highly educated. So, and there's always that cliche, like, they took away everything, but they can't take our minds, they can't take away our education. It's our key to a better life, to upward mobility, to succeed anywhere in the world, because a lot of Palestinians didn't know what their life is going to be or where they're going to end up. So education was their way, like, wherever I end up, I have an education, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, whatever, I can work and build a life for myself and my family. So that's kind of my take on it. Nakba was a huge factor, but not the only factor.
Because the research that came out in 2016, the literacy among Palestinians in Palestine was 98%, 97 to 98%, if I remember correctly. That's 2016, not too long ago. So it's fascinating, even with the new generation, they're still driven buy all that passion to, read and write, because like you said, it is our ticket way out. My dad used to say, just like you mentioned, is, government can come and take your house. Political system can just make you displace yourself. A husband can, ruin your life or put limitation. Even children can break your heart and be mean to you. And then you have to fend for yourself. But nobody can take your knowledge from you. Knowledge is knowledge.
Exactly.
And that is, he used to say that Taskartik, basically, that's your ticket to the invitation to the party. When you are higher educated, you can kind of catch the light. People start being attracted to you. They become interested in your opinion, in your thoughts, in your mindset, and you start exchanging ideas. So that has always been implanted in us from my dad's side. My dad was a lot more passionate, as a Palestinian. It's like, don't you ever forget. Don't you ever forget. My mom was very encouraging, but, my mom's like, if you want to take a year off, that's fine. I think because, like you said, I'm staying home, so I'm not going away anytime soon. So that was her safety blanket. But at the end of the day, she never, ever will allow you to give up on your dream or pursuing education. And they did play the mind games between the siblings, look what your brother is doing, look what your sister is doing. And it was a healthy competition. And I think it just kept our drive going. Now, coming to the United States, and I ask all my guests that immigrated, what do you think was the most challenging adaptability for you coming from Jordan and into Michigan?
I think the biggest challenge was just figuring things out on my own, like building a life for myself. I came when I was 22 years old, and I lived with my family for the first 22 years. I, never cooked. I did clean a lot in the house. I did help out with the house chores, but I never cooked. I never, was away from my family for more than a few nights here and there, maybe, hanging out with friends or something like that. So, to me, the biggest challenge was arriving in this country. I don't know anybody. So I arrived in the Detroit area knowing literally two people. And funny enough, when I arrived, they were outside the country at the time. They're like my next door neighbors from Amman, but one of them was getting married. So I didn't even get a chance to have anybody like pick me up at the airport and all that. So figuring out, okay, I just landed. How do I go take a cab from the airport to my hotel? And the next day, how do I call my parents? Like it's little things, but they pile up for like that first month when I am still figuring out, where am I going to live? What kind of apartment am I going to rent? How am I going to make, how am I going to make my way from my apartment to school and all that? Because when you do that by yourself, it is definitely an interesting experience. Let's put it that way. And this was 2002. No smartphones, no, instant messaging. I think for that first couple weeks, I was literally the way I would just, keep tabs with my family. It's either, you go to the grocery store, get that calling card, scratch it off and make a call, or basically I would email my sister and she would keep me up to date on how things are going for the first 2-3 weeks. So that was the biggest challenge is, being away and the homesickness. At the same time, it kind of motivated me in the sense of, okay, like I chose this, so better not cry about it. Like you did this yourself. You can't blame anybody. If you want to go home, you can go home. But at the same time, like I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to succeed. I'm not going to allow myself to be sidetracked by anything. And, God knows this country has so many temptations and can sidetrack somebody very easily. But it was that, okay, I chose this. I'm homesick. I better make something out of it. So I think that was the biggest challenge is just navigating that aloneness, because in Jordan, and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of countries, connections make life a lot easier. Like my first bank account, when I opened it in Jordan, my dad was the deputy of the whole bank. So I just like sat in his office, signed a couple papers and went back home. then I had to navigate, how do I open a bank account in the US? How do I deposit a check and make sure that check clears before I have to pay my tuitions? And how do I go, buy pillows and bed sheets and all that? So it's those little things that I found the most challenging. Once I settled in, that's like, the challenge became different. The challenge became like, can I get good grades? Can I find a good job and all that? But those, I would say, as difficult as those might sound, they were not the tough part. The tough part was the first couple months, to be honest. Everything else after that, I had a plan for. I knew how, I figured out how to go about making it happen. The first couple months was, a deer caught in a headlight, trying to figure out, how do I figure out the bus schedule? How do I get on the bus and where do I get off and all that stuff? So I think that's been the toughest part. The challenge varies, obviously, as life progresses. Like after a while, when I got married, the challenge becomes, how do you build a good life with a wife and kids here and raise them in a way that you want to raise them? And how do you ensure you get the right value, instill the right values in them while still being true to yourself, true to your culture, but also taking all the opportunities that this country presents. So the challenges vary as you progress through life, but that first challenge of arriving in a foreign country with knowing nobody is, that to me was the kicker, as they say. It was the tough one.
It's almost like you go through withdrawal syndrome from the plethora of support, the tribal support, I call it, to nothing. It's like too quiet. Where's everybody? And then you have to make your own life. You have to make your own tribe. Now, what resonated with you in the United States that you chose to come to the States, not England, for example? And do you see yourself redesigning your belief system? Now you're a husband and a father, different than the belief system you came in with?
Those are good questions. What made the choice the US versus other parts? As an engineer, there's nowhere else. There's no better place to be. Very few countries, probably a handful, or even in those countries, a handful of universities offer the education and post-education, the real the real technology opportunities that one gets in the US. I'll say this, I often have conversations with friends and family, why don't you, you've been here for 20 plus years, you've got a ton of experience, why don't you go to Dubai or the Gulf region or somewhere else? And I keep telling people, in the US, as a professional, I am developing the new technology. I'm working on brand new robots or brand new autonomous vehicles. In the Gulf region, I will be a consumer. I'll be using that technology that somebody else develops in the US and selling it, or, figuring out how to best make it work for that region. Those are two different, as an engineer, those are two very different things. So to me, the US was, I'm not going to get the experience as an engineer anywhere else in the world, or maybe not anywhere else in the world, but very few places in the world would give me that. And also the amount of opportunities. So many companies, so many different technologies, so many opportunities, so many universities in the US that if one opportunity doesn't pan out, there are so many different other ones that I can pursue. So that kind of pushed me towards the US versus the UK versus, somewhere else. Would I love to experience life in those other countries? I would love to, spend a year or two here and there, Japan, UK, France, Europe. I would love that, but, you never know how life unfolds. But that's, I think, kind of what drew me towards the US. Sorry, what was the other part of the question? I forgot.
No worries. We always discuss the belief system because our research shows that all immigrants coming from whatever background, even just migrating from a small town to a big city, we carry with us the belief system, a certain belief system that guides us and constitute the way we conduct ourselves in society. But the challenge is when you're coming from an Eastern traditional society, although, your parents sounds like they had a lot of egalitarian opinions about education and maximizing on potential. how you analyze the United States. You know, you're here in the United States because you want to maximize on the potential and you want to be on the developmental end of the industry, not the consumer end of the industry. So we do carry that belief system with us. But I'll tell you this, I've been in this country 37 years. I was 19 years old when I came here. And just 2 years ago, something was just nagging me. There's certain things, not belief as iman or faith or religion, has nothing to do with it. Just that, almost like that tribal, traditional values that served me very, very well when I came very young. But now I'm, a seasoned dentist. I've been in the United States for 37 years. So certain things, they were not serving me as much, and I didn't wanted to cancel it, completely wipe it out of my belief system. But I just wanted to tuck it and store it somewhere and create my own belief system to have some kind of that hybrid identity. You don't want to be too extreme traditional. You want to be modern. You want to be a social. So I always ask, now I never birthed any children, but I've been around children all my life. And I can't imagine not going through that process of just modifying that belief system. Now you have children that are half and half. They're American, they were born here, but also you want to keep that, lifeline still attached to Jordan and Palestine, especially the traditions. So I always wonder that, Arab immigrant parents, what they go through as far as their belief system when they start raising children, especially when the kids start school, they get influenced by their kids and there's a lot of peer pressure, especially these days. So I'm just wondering, as a dad, are you going through that process right now?
Big time.
Sorry.
There's no. It's actually very good. So there's always that, the cliche of I want my kids to get the best of both worlds. Obviously, what is best for me can vary very much for my neighbor or for my friend who also came from Jordan but has a somewhat different background. I think at the end of the day, the way I look at it, the core belief system that I grew up with, and my wife, who has a very similar background, grew up with, it is very, I think that stands the test of time, more or less. Family, community, working hard, doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, which country you live in, those are values that I think will stand the test of time. So the good part about it is, no matter where life takes us, those are the values that I want to instill in my kids and work my hardest to make sure that they get it. I'm also a realist, realizing that the time and place that I grew up in doesn't exist anymore. I always joke with my wife, she loves Amman a lot more than I do, or she loves visiting Amman a lot more than I do, not because I don't like Amman or ashamed of it, but because I always tell her the Amman that I grew up in is gone. I don't recognize it anymore. It has evolved so much physically from just construction and buildings and all that, but also socially, economically, culturally, it has evolved a lot. That doesn't mean that there aren't people who still hold those values, just a lot of differences. And because it's been 20 plus years since I left, it's very different. So I'm a realist in saying that there's no way I can raise my children in the same exact way, or to come out and become replicas of myself or my wife as in their belief or in their behaviors. But there is a way, and I've seen it happen successfully, to raise kids in the US with combining that or instilling that core belief system, which like I said, stands the test of time. Is it easy? Absolutely not. It's actually the harder path. It's very easy and to just be lazy and say, you know what, they live in the US, they're just going to speak English. No, I insist that once my kid leaves, he's 2 years old, so it's obviously different now, but then in the future, but once I pick up my son from daycare, that's it. I only speak Arabic with him. I will not speak English. Even if he starts speaking English to me, I'll respond in Arabic so he can switch back and start talking to us in Arabic. And so is it easier for me to just keep talking in English to him? Oh, obviously. Is it easier for me to just not worry about the language? Obviously that is easier, but if I want to instill in him the same values or that core belief system, I will definitely have to, we'll have to work hard at it, but it's worth it, and that's kind of why you have kids, to work hard and raise them well. So that's kind of how I look at like instilling that belief system in my child. Obviously, you know, having a village around us, and you know that metaphorical village of friends who share similar backgrounds and beliefs, of family that can always interact with my son, going back and visiting as often as we can, amen, and making sure my son spends time with my parents, his grandparents. That's all part of that, you know, continuation of instilling that belief system. Does one's belief system change as you evolve in the US? Again, I think the core doesn't change, but potentially how you view things might change. What you thought was potentially normal, or just like it is what it is in life in Jordan, you might find like this is not necessarily good or healthy for me, or this is not necessarily what I want. A simple example is like, you know, family is great, and having family around is wonderful, but there's also that, you know, for some people, you know, having so many family members know everything about you might not be a positive thing. So in the US, it becomes easier to say, you know what, that's not part of the best of my old world that I want my kids to get. So choosing what best of both worlds is also not easy and difficult. And that's something that as a parent, you have to pause and think like, do I really want them to get exposed to this part of my culture that I was exposed to that I don't necessarily like, or should I shield them and focus on doing things differently? Not to criticize, you know, parents or uncles or aunts or the again, the metaphorical village that we grew up with in our countries, but there are things that I would say every Arab parent would probably say, this is my experience, I want my kid to have a different experience. And then there are other things where like, this is the wonderful experience that I have that I want my kids to have. I think that evolves as you live in the US and as you know, raise your children here.
I used to believe that we need to choose. Either we're Americans or Arab. And I took me years, came to the conclusion that we should not choose. We're both. And that's a beautiful thing. That is an advantage that we have over a lot of people, being bilingual, having multicultural competency, multicultural adaptability. It's something beautiful that when your children go back to Amman, Jordan, they are going to be able to relate. They are going to be able to, you know, calm and comfort your parents as grandparents because they know the culture, you know, and the belief system, the way I explain it, is like Mother Earth, you know, Earth, the core of Earth, the electromagnetic field inside of Earth hasn't changed for millions of billions of years. But the Earth itself, if you look at the history of Earth, the land, you know, got separated. We have more ocean, less ocean, more land. You have the ice, the melting of the ice. So the geography of the Earth have changed from the outside, but because it needed to change as a response to a different environmental conditions, that it had to adapt to that environment or that weather in order to survive. And that's how I picture it, that your core is never going to change until the last day on this earth for me. But I just dress it a little bit differently. It looks different from the outside, but the inside is still the same. And that is, again, I think, and I hope your generation, I'm sure, that is teaching their children to be that hybrid. You know, my generation and older, it's either one or the other. Yeah, I'm Amriki, I'm Arab. You know, we had to choose. And that put a lot of pressure on us, to be honest with you. Now I learned, why can't we be both? I am this and that. You know, there's no reason for us to drop. And that, like I said, will give you the advantage to be able to adapt and to be able to be sympathetic and tolerant to other cultures. And just having two languages, it's like I said, it's a beautiful thing. Moving on to the PCRF, my favorite topic. Right. Could you share with our audience and our listeners what the PCRF is all about?
So PCRF stands for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. It was founded in 91 or 92, I believe, so about 33, 34 years ago. It's a nonprofit non-religious, non-political nonprofit that focuses on providing free medical care to the thousands and thousands of injured and ill Palestinian children who lack that access in their local community, be it Palestine itself or the neighboring countries and the refugee camps in the neighboring countries, mainly in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and so on. Over the years, we've organized medical missions with doctors that have traveled to Palestine and the neighboring countries to provide medical care. We've brought thousands of children outside of Palestine to get medical treatment in the U.S. and now a lot of the neighboring countries as well. We've built two pediatric cancer departments in Palestine, which was a first in like one in Gaza and I think one in the West Bank. The first one in Gaza. What else can I say? I can dive deep a lot into PCRF, but we're a volunteer-based organization, and for the last 12 consecutive years, we've received 4 out of 4 stars on Charity Navigator, which is basically the highest rating you can get on Charity Navigator. So we're very proud of the organization and what we've done, and obviously since October 2023, with the ongoing war in Gaza, we've been focusing a lot of our efforts there, and we've provided over $50 million in relief for relief efforts in Gaza, which included humanitarian aid, medical care. We've treated over 64,000 patients. We've had 7 medical missions go to Gaza. We've performed over 1,300 surgeries, over 2,500 consultations, and we have 2 field hospitals that are operating there. And we continue to provide, as much as we can, medical aid, food, water, hot meals, milk and formula for children and babies, clothing, and all that in Gaza. In addition, to our continuous operation in the West Bank, in Lebanon, with medical supplies, with treatment. Right now, I think we're expanding the pediatric cancer center in the West Bank to be able to treat more children. So that's in a very quick nutshell what the PCRF does. Obviously, I'm happy to we can dive into the various exact programs that the PCRF does, but that's an overview of the history and what PCRF does.
Now, when did you got involved? How long you been president?
President, about a year. Involved as a board member for the PCRF Boston chapter. 7, 8 years now. And then volunteering probably 2-3 years before that. So I would say about 10 years I've been involved with the PCRF in one way, shape, or form.
And do they have chapters? Is it only the United States or international?
International, we do have chapters. I think there's 1 or 2 in Europe. I think I know about the one in Italy. I believe there's another one in Europe, and I think we recently have one in Dubai that we started. So there are international chapters. Obviously, the U.S. is the biggest presence in terms of chapters. We just have a child that left Palestine to go to Australia for treatment, which is a new frontier for us, I guess. We've never sent children to Australia. So we have a lot of connections, a lot of support system across the world, and we try to tap into that, whether it's an official chapter or, a support system that we have and friends that will help us out.
No, I do follow you guys on Instagram, and I do tag you a lot. I did create the What Cop initiative, What About the Children of Palestine initiative, and that was originated after October 7 because to my surprise, I looked into a lot of U.S.-based awareness organization, and there are a lot, children of the world, children of famine, but nothing specifically about the children of Palestine, not as an organization or donation or fundraising organization, just an organization to raise an awareness that, if you agree children's our future, if you agree that, the kids are suffering, or we have 100 140 million orphans in the world due to war zones. What about the children in Palestine? Why are we turning a blind eye to what they go through every single day, how they walk from home to school in these, restrictive, circumstances, environment, conditions, and also resources? So I've been very impressed with your efforts, and like I said, I follow the updates and the news, and I get so excited when I see a hospital getting built or a supply support that reach there, and you can see the kids are so happy to get that support. So I would love, as a the Middle East and North Africa ambassador of the MM360, probably Dr. Alyssa White is listening, movement, to be a patron for the PCRF. I would love to do that, and I want to talk to you about in detail. I know I mentioned it to you before, but I just have to figure out the logistics. And what we would like to do is to spread an awareness and advocate for the PCRF within our movement, because most of our movement is in Africa, very, very strong presence in Africa. South Africa has an amazing resources, amazing hospitals, and amazing professionals, doctors that can really help a lot. And of course, our, brothers and sisters in North Africa, that, we can actually spread that awareness for the PCRF in a different market. But also, at the same time, to bring that awareness. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people don't know you guys exist. So how could anybody, of course, there's a website, but what's the best way if any of our listeners or, audience, our viewers wants to reach out to you guys, whether volunteer or donate?
Two ways. Best way is go to our website. It's www.pcrf.net. And obviously you can donate there. You can sign up to be a volunteer. You can learn about our programs, whether it's the treatment abroad program where we bring kids to the U.S. to get treated, medical missions, orphan sponsorship programs, our cancer departments, our amputee programs. Like, you can learn a lot there. The other part is to reach out to us via email. Our email for the Boston chapter is very simple. It's boston@pcrf.net. Email us. We'll get the email and promptly respond. And if it's something that we have to connect with the greater national office, we'll do that and loop people in and figure out the best way to answer questions and provide the support and do the collaboration that is needed. But yeah, website or email would be the best way.
And if there are families on the ground in Palestine in dire need for help, can they reach those PCRF centers easily? How does it happen? I always wonder, how does it happen on the ground?
So on the ground, we have staff that works for the PCRF that is born and raised like in Palestine, whether it's the West Bank or whether it's Gaza. So our Gaza staff are they're not people who are from the U.S. who all of a sudden find themselves in Gaza and don't know the lay of the land. No, these are people from Gaza, born and raised. They are from the community. So we rely on them to tell us here, hey, I think this is the best area for a field hospital, or this is where aid is needed and distributed. So that's kind of the best way for people to get aid, is to connect with that staff. Now, we've had instances where people will email us and say, I live in this area of Gaza, in northern Gaza, for example, in this neighborhood and all that, and I need aid. And we promptly send that information to the staff on the ground, and they are best capable to say, okay, we can reach this person this way or that way, or they, communicate and get in touch with them. So that's the beautiful thing about us, is our staff is local. They are from the community. They know the community. They're able to understand all the nuances, all the sensitivities, all the needs, and best provide that information to us. In addition, we have obviously the staff that is, in the West Bank. We have our regional CEO lives there. She moved from the U.S. to work there and live there. So there's not only the staff on the ground, there's also the administration that is in the West Bank, in the region, that also relays that information to us and says, okay, here's the programs we need to work on. We need to provide XYZ to the community. So that's generally the best way that people can get in touch and learn about it, or, get the aid they need. And then, if they get in touch with us through our website or email, we definitely relay that information back to our staff on the ground. So, it helps us having people who work for the organization who are from the area, who know it best.
That's very smart, because a lot of, as part of the movement, the MM360, we read a lot about the organizations on the ground, and it's the same thing in Africa. So our headquarters, I think, Ghana, Nigeria, and the best organizers are the ones on the ground, involved with the small community organization, charitable organization that helps certain pockets of community. But that's real smart, because I had 2 families actually reach out to me through Instagram after I posted the video about the PCRF gala. And I talked about the PCRF a little bit, and they said exactly what you mentioned. We need help. So I remember I just gave you the names, and you asked them to contact the locals, which is great. So unfortunately, we have reached the end of our hour. I would like to thank my guest, Tarek Abu-Jabara. Thank you so much for coming on. And as a reminder, these episodes are uploaded every single Wednesday on the Apple and Spotify podcast platforms, and also you can watch them on our YouTube channel on the Greenwood Dental Partners anytime you want and anywhere you are. And please, if you are interested in helping, like Tarek has mentioned, you can always email them, and they do absolutely beautiful, beautiful work, and I'm so proud of it. And hopefully one day we will work together. So thank you for our listeners. And if you like this content, please like, share, and hit the notification button so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time. This is Slava the Jordanian.